Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to absolutely challenge almost everything you were ever taught about historical superpowers. We're pulling back the curtain on the massive, world-shaping civilizations that, well, somehow just vanished from our textbooks.
Quick question for you. What was the greatest empire in human history? You instantly thought of Rome, didn't you? Or maybe Britain? Well, actually, here's the crazy thing. The richest person who ever lived? Not European. The empire that built way more pyramids than Egypt wasn't Egyptian. And the civilization that literally invented the alphabet you might use today? Yeah, your history teacher probably skipped that chapter entirely. These are the absolute greatest empires you never learned about, and the #1 spot on our list is going to completely change how you view human history.
Section 1. The Empire's Schools Erased. 5,000 years of hidden history.
So in this explainer, we're taking a huge journey to rank 20 of these forgotten empires by their sheer influence and scale. We're talking about a staggering 5,000-year span here, all the way from Caral-Supe in 3500 BCE right up to the Mali Empire in 1235 CE. You know, these weren't just tiny blips on the historical radar. These were world-dominating eras. And stick around because it's going to be fascinating to uncover our #1 empire later on. Spoiler alert, it's a civilization that built monumental pyramids but literally never fought a single war. No way, right?
Section 2. Forgotten Innovators and Builders, Rewriting the Dark Ages.
We are focusing on empires that pulled off some staggering feats, centuries before the standard Western timeline even acknowledges them. Take this number, 6,000. That's the 6,000-character alphabet created completely from scratch by the Western Xia dynasty. They successfully fought 3 superpowers simultaneously, but here is the wild kicker. Genghis Khan actually died trying to conquer them. And because of that, the Mongols were so furious they literally burned every single book and destroyed every record just to erase them from history. They basically tried to uninvent an entire empire.
Now this contrast is just unbelievable. Consider the Caliphate of Cordoba, an enlightened Islamic empire with 500,000 people, paved roads, actual street lighting, and 70 libraries holding 400,000 books. At that exact same time, London was stuck in the Christian Dark Ages, scraping by with just 25,000 people. Putting those two side by side completely shatters our standard preconceptions of medieval Europe, doesn't it?
Then we have the number 13,000. That is the altitude in feet, where the ThoughtCo Empire built massive terraced cities high up in the Andes. It's just awe-inspiring. They engineered complex farming systems to feed 60,000 people. And get this, they did it all using just stone. No wheels, no iron, no written language whatsoever. Sure, they were eventually wiped out by a massive 300-year drought, but their level of engineering at that crazy altitude remains totally mind-blowing.
Section 3. African and Asian Powerhouses. Unfathomable Wealth and Scale.
This era is all about sheer economic and military dominance. I mean, the Tarascan state repeatedly repelled the massive Aztec Empire, and Africa's Songhai Empire held off heavily armed Moroccan forces using mostly just spears. But the wealth, the scale of wealth is just as staggering. Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire is estimated to have been worth around $400 billion when adjusted for inflation. That completely dwarfs modern billionaire benchmarks. When he took a pilgrimage to Mecca with 60,000 people, he brought so much gold with him that he literally crashed Cairo's economy for 12 years, just by showing up.
And honestly, the scale only gets more unfathomable from there. The Khmer Empire built the incredible Angkor Wat, and their city held 1 million people right when London had a measly 50,000. Their hydraulic engineering was so advanced it created reservoirs covering 1,000 square kilometers. Equally crazy is the Srivijaya Maritime Empire. They ruled the most important trade routes on Earth for 600 years without ever having a true capital on land. In fact, we only laser mapped their underwater capital back in 2018.
Meanwhile, over in the Horn of Africa, the Aksumite Empire was literally one of the 4 great powers of the ancient world. They minted their own gold coins. They engineered massive obelisks weighing 500 tons, and crucially, they officially adopted Christianity in 330 CE. That was way before Rome fully did. So, while Europe was fragmenting, they were absolutely thriving.
Section 4. Giants of the Continents, the Rivals of Rome and China.
These continental giants absolutely dwarfed Western powers, but they lacked the written PR to be globally remembered. For example, have you ever wondered what the Buddha actually looked like? Well, before the Kushan Empire, Buddha was just depicted as symbols, footprints, trees, or wheels. It was the Kushans who forever changed religious art along the Silk Road by creating the very first human image Buddha statues. Similarly, you have the great Sasanian Empire. They were Rome's greatest rival for 4 centuries. They invented the windmill. They had glowing oil lamp cities, and yet they rarely get the historical spotlight.
Then consider this incredible account of the Scythians. They stretched from Ukraine to Mongolia, 4 million square kilometers, and their women fought alongside men. These were the real Amazons, guys. They ruled an empire across vast steppes, without building walls or cities, relying purely on horse archers and gold. And yeah, the women fought right alongside the men. They left this tremendous legacy, but because they didn't keep written records of their own, we only know about them through the somewhat biased eyes of Greek historians like Herodotus.
Section 5. The Ancient Game Changers, the firsts of human history.
Let's pull back the curtain on the oldest pioneers, the empires that quite literally invented the basic tools of civilization. The Akkadian Empire was the world's very first true empire, over 4,300 years ago. Sargon of Akkad conquered everything from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. He created the world's first standing army. But ultimately, this first empire was brought down by climate change. They were destroyed by a brutal 300-year drought, and we can actually still see the evidence of that in ancient tree rings today.
Following them, the Hittite Empire was the first to mass-produce iron weapons, and brilliantly, they signed the world's first known peace treaty with Egypt in 1259 BCE. Both sides' versions of that treaty still exist today. Right next door to them was the ghost empire of the Mitanni. Their horse-drawn chariots completely changed Near East warfare forever, right before their records were entirely wiped off the map by the Assyrians.
Moving on to the Kingdom of Kush. They built over 200 pyramids and boasted the absolute most advanced iron smelting in the ancient world. At one point, they even conquered Egypt and ruled as pharaohs. But despite having more pyramids than Egypt itself, Egyptian historians effectively minimize these conquerors in their texts. They basically erase the Kush from the dominant historical narrative.
Which leads us right to the intense curiosity around our number 1 empire. A 5,000-year-old civilization that built monuments and never fought a single war. The Caral-Supe civilization is the oldest in the Americas. They built pyramids 5,000 years ago, just as old as Egypt's, with super complex urban planning and irrigation. But what's truly spectacular? Since they were discovered by Ruth Shady Solis back in 1994, archaeologists have found 0 evidence of weapons or defensive walls. An ancient superpower with literally no war. How wild is that?
Section 6. Why history forgot them. Memory is power.
So, why did we forget them all? We need to analyze why immense scale and wealth absolutely do not guarantee historical memory. Look at the Xiongnu Empire. They are the literal reason China built the Great Wall. They spanned 9 million square kilometers, making them way larger than Rome at its peak. Or the Mauryans. They controlled 5 million square kilometers, held a third of the world's population, and had a 6,000-agent spy network. But they aren't the names we instantly remember. This proves a vital point. Land and population aren't power. Memory is actual power.
But here's the thing, their DNA is in everything around you. If you've ever typed in Russian, you are using the Cyrillic alphabet from the First Bulgarian Empire. Ever walked under a streetlight? Cordoba had them first. We got windmills from the Sasanians, peace treaties from the Hittites, and the very first animal hospitals were built by the Maurya Empire. They never really died, they just learned new names.
So, I want to leave you with a question to think about. Which of these erased empires do you think deserves a deeper dive? It really makes you question who writes our history, doesn't it? The empires we remember are simply the ones whose libraries didn't burn. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious and keep questioning the history you are taught.